That's my fans right there. Like so many of you probably don't experience when you have a smaller gathering, could we try and kind of make this room feel a little bit cozier and kind of fill up the front in case anyone comes late? I know a lot of people are traveling from around the state, so they might come in a few minutes late. So we'll start here in just a second while a few others are gathering their seats. And then thank you so much for taking this time out of your day to come and experience this. I hope that we have put together quite a lineup for you today. It's been a passion of ours to be able to share resources like this and have speakers that are going to hopefully enrich you and give you something to where you're going to be able to take that back to your church. So, synergy, the definition of synergy is to combine or work together in order to be more effective. And the heart behind synergy in 1 Corinthians is one of the giftings of the Spirit gave us is the gift of administration. And there's a lot of administrators out there amongst our churches, amongst all the people out there. And as we've evaluated over the last few years with Synergy of how the excellence could be better, so we wanted to kind of put this together and create something to where we can, as a network, come together with any and all of our church teams that are out there, you guys individuals as your churches, kind of see, this is for the majority of our churches, probably a common church team that you see, either the lead pastor and spouse, some kind of a bookkeeper or an admin person or something like that, the board members and the treasurer. And those are the people that you have to pour into to be able to help you make the church happen in your community. And so what the goal behind Synergy is to create a team that any church, no matter which size it is, has access to be able to have a CPA, have an accountant, have a bookkeeper, have a legal representative, have an IT social media website developer, all those kind of pieces, but you're hiring them at the fraction of the price that you would anywhere else. And so having this kind of outsourced model with people who understand ministry, they are kingdom-minded people as well. They're in the churches, one of our churches. That's one of the 4 criteria we have, is that they are adequately, within one of our churches already. And so they get it. They're living right there along with you. And so we can tap into the resources, the extra time that they have to be able to help you guys out. And kind of what we've experienced from the network in the last year, we've grown a little. We have a staff of 7 that I think the key behind Synergy is not the business promotions or anything like that. It's the people that myself, the network leadership, Mike Cicades, which is there in the center right, is my fellow CPA partner, developing a team to make sure that they are performing at excellence, that they are making sure that they understand the best practices, all that kind of stuff, the legal, IRS standards, all that kind of fun stuff that so many of our churches we've seen have not. When you have a volunteer bookkeeper, they might not be reading all the IRS regs and all that kind of stuff. So we want to make sure that we have a team that's equipped to be able to help you guys with all that kind of stuff, keep it on best practice, getting a budget together for you, all those kind of things. And so in our first year, since we actually launched last year at Smaller Church Conference, but we really launched in Summit, we've had 23 churches sign up that have either onboarded or are still in the onboarding process for this year. So I just want to give you guys a quick representation of what Synergy's done so far. And I think the biggest thing from the network standpoint is that we love each and every one of you. We love each and every one of your churches, and we want to show this by being there as a team to come alongside you and not do anything but be there alongside you and show you how we love each other. Just even looking at Doug Farrington, one of our speakers, how we've come alongside him and helped him. And so just many of the churches that we're able to do this impact remotely at a cost-effective point so that you guys aren't having to burden your budget any more than it would to just find someone local. So that's kind of our goal behind that. Next, I have asked Pastor Choco to give us a little bit of his time. So he was able to record a quick segment for you. I just asked him to share his heart for Oregon and try to just give from his seat at the national office, just share his thoughts for you guys. So I just have that for you, and then we will continue.
Hey, God bless you. God bless you. This is Pastor Choco. What a joy to come to you, Oregon, to be able to share with you about kingdom stewardship. And I know you're enjoying this summit, but I want to give you at least a word that will at least provoke your spirit and disturb you. I want to encourage every pastor, every minister that's listening, to inform you that the kingdom of heaven is not in a recession, and that the Church of Jesus Christ will not participate in the recession that's happening in the United States and around the world. In Matthew chapter 25, I want to share some kingdom principles with you all. Matthew chapter 25 is the parable of the talents. The Bible says in 25:14, verse 14, "For it would be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted him to his property." Verse 15, "To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2 talents, and to another 1. To each according," watch this, "according to his ability." That's important. According to his ability. Then he went away. Verse 16, "He who received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had 2 talents made 2 talents more." You get the idea. "But he who had 1 received 1 talent, went and dug it in the ground and hid his master's money." Now, after a long time, the Bible tells you, after a while, the master came back, and he wanted to settle the accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing the 5 talents more, saying, "Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have 5 talents more." His master said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master." Verse 22, "And he who also had the 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents, and I made 2 talents more." His master said the same thing. "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master." He also who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, "Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and I hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours." But his master answered him, "You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I will reap where I did not sow, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received what was my own with interest. So take that talent from him and give it to him who had the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But for the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast this worthless servant into the outer darkness, in that place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." I want to encourage you that we are part of a greater kingdom. And in this kingdom, we are given assignments. We're given tasks. And the assignment is to protect and to expand what he has given us. Let me say that again. Protect and expand what God has given us. This parable tells us that there is ownership and our stewardship. That he is the owner and we are the steward. It is his right and it's our responsibility. Did you get that? It's his right and our responsibility. Now I want you to know something, that when God gives us an opportunity to steward his kingdom, he's going to come back and he's going to require that you and I offer something in return. So there's a couple things I want to give you while you're taking notes. I hope you're taking notes here. First of all, faithfulness is faith that moves. Some people move in the wrong direction, but at least they're moving. When you and I are faithful, it requires that we move. The other thing I want you to know is that there's a reward. Two servants got a reward. The last one was seen and he was thrown out into the outer darkness. The reward for being faithful, I want you to look at me. the reward for being faithful and carrying out their responsibility was more responsibility. It wasn't more money, it wasn't more title, it was more responsibility. So because you've been faithful in the small things, because you've been good steward of God's money, He's going to reward you, hear me out, He's going to reward you with more responsibility. When God elevates, there are new responsibility in our life. And the reason for the reward is faithfulness. So we're living in a world today where we lack faithfulness, where we don't steward what God has. But I'm here to tell you today that the Master's coming back, and He's going to require for you and I to give a responsibility of what we've had. No matter how big your church is, no matter how small your church is, the Master's coming back to ask you and I, what have we done with what He has given us? So you're learning here today that the reward for being faithful is more responsibility. Hey, let me pray a blessing over your life. Pray that God will bless you. So Father, in the name of Jesus, I thank you for my brothers and sisters. I thank you, dear Lord, for the leadership in Oregon. I pray, dear Lord, I pray over their ministries. I pray that you would multiply them. And I pray, dear God, that they would not allow their budget to dictate their faith. And that they would know that they represent the kingdom of heaven. And that the kingdom of heaven is not in a recession. I pray a pastoral blessing upon them. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord guide you. May the Lord shine His face upon you. May the Lord be gracious unto you. And may the Lord give you peace. In Jesus' name. Hey, love you guys.
We love you too, Choco. It's always hard watching the video, but at the same time, it's probably hard to get 10 minutes of his live commitment to us. So we'll definitely be working on that in the future. Like he had said, Synergy, it's been a seed that, which I'm so grateful that Doug Clay's coming. I was able to go to the Seaman conference 2 years ago, and he did a session where he had us all take a seed and plant it. In Synergy was that seed I planted 2 years ago, and I'm just so thankful that Doug's here today to be a part of our summit as well. So with that, I have on our stage Raleigh Demos, who is one of Raleigh's close workers at the national office. He's the internal auditor. Him and Stephanie Pilates takes care of all the audit and finance, and he is, if all of you probably know of Richard Hammer, he is kind of Richard Hammer is like the encyclopedia. Raleigh Demos is the one who actually makes it in English, so that all the rest of us can understand. So that's kind of the way that I would interpret Raleigh. Raleigh and me have been able to be some close friends for the last couple of years as we've been able to present, or I've been able to be a part of a few of his events. We've connected. Downloaded the Dream of Synergy to him. He, as you can see with his t-shirt, is kind of the stewarding the empowering stewardship there at the national office. I highly encourage you, keep that website. He's always, and be a part of their Facebook. You want constant articles, admin, all that kind of stuff that relates to, something the Supreme Court did. We're always got an article that'll be out there for you and all that kind of stuff. So I highly encourage you to be connected with him on that piece. And so Raleigh, welcome.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's great to be with you and all of your pastors.
And so Raleigh, if you could, I'll show you really quick. I gotta change this out real quick. I have to plug it in first. So anyways, Raleigh, tell us a little bit about your position there at the national office.
Sure, yeah. So I'm the internal audit director, and there's two of us, as you mentioned, Jeremy. And we work for the general treasurer. And so Pastor Choco is our boss at the moment. is our boss. I don't mean to infer anything there. He's our boss. Before him, Rick DeBose. Before him, Doug Flagg. And so I've gotten to work for all of our leaders, current leaders, and so that's been a lot of fun. So internal audit, we're making sure the building, the national office, is complying with our internal policies and procedures and external policies and procedures like laws and regulations and IRS tax code. And so what we have to do as a nonprofit is exactly what you guys all have to do in your churches. Because I get to help our organization comply and follow best business practices and have good controls in place for financial stewardship, those relate and transfer all over to what you guys are doing at the local church. And so it's my pleasure to come alongside our churches as well and help you guys do the same thing. You mentioned the Empowering Stewardship website, empoweringstewardship.com. Please visit it if you haven't visited it before. It's kind of like we're that outward-facing ministry to help you in all things church finance and administration. So like the back office, we try to put articles there. We probably have 100 articles or more. We've got a learning management course where you can send your bookkeepers or your church treasurer through it. Take our courses on all things church finance. We're going to add more over the years, but we just added one on charitable contributions last month. I think this month we're going to add one on generosity and stewardship. But you can even, once you complete it, you can get a little certificate and frame it, put it on your wall. That's about all you can get with it. But hey, it demonstrates that you're trying to learn and learn the best practices you can about finance administration. So visit our website. And then real quickly, if you're a pastor, we have grants, financial grants for our ministers. And so if you haven't heard of that before, check out our website. $1,500 grants to help you start a retirement fund, help you pay down student debt, or just to help relieve any financial stress that you might currently have. We call that the Financial Success Grant. And so we believe that this will be the last year of offering these grants. And so there's still time. If you haven't received one per minister, check out our website for that information.
Thank you, Raleigh. So before we get on to the core content of your thing, as you see on your table, you have the Q&A. If you can, as you have questions that come up, as Raleigh's going to dive deep into this, text those into us. We will take a time towards the end of this session to ask those of Raleigh that we can during the time. And so please just make sure to be clear on what you have to ask Raleigh. And Raleigh, with that, without further ado, please share with us your wisdom. I know you've got some things that we've talked about that on church administration.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here and bring up my PowerPoint. Jeremy, that was really nice of you to say that I'm kind of in a class with Rich Hammer. That's not true, but one thing Doug Clay said to me once was that Rich Hammer is Wall Street Journal. And he said, Raleigh, I need you to be USA Today. So that's what I do. I take whatever Rich has written and I turn it into common language. So that's what we're trying to do. Just make it easy to understand, because church finance administration can be difficult, can be complex, can be confusing, especially when pastors, you didn't go to church to become, you didn't go to college to become the president and CEO of a corporation, but that's what you all have, or end up being, is the president and CEO or executive leadership team of a corporation. And you've got to, along with your Bible skills and preaching skills, you also have to manage the business side of ministry. So that's where we come along, where Jeremy and his team, if we can be a resource to you, that's what makes us happy. So check out empoweringstewardship.com. So for this session, I thought I would just try to give you 5 stewardship tips, must-have policies and procedures, best practices related to finance and administration. Because I only have a little bit of time, so I'm gonna narrow it down to 5. But that's really disingenuous because I have multiple subpoints. So it's really like 50, but it's gonna look like I only have 5. So in today, I want to give you a high level of like the 5 big areas, the big boulders, the big categories of area that you need to concentrate on to make sure you have good financial information to make wise business decisions. That's what you guys need as church leaders. You need timely information, accurate information, and complete information. So if you have complete, timely, and accurate financial information, you'll be able to make good business decisions. But sometimes we don't always have complete, accurate, or timely financial information. So I want to share with you just some points for you to consider. Now, at the end of this, you might say, I'm going to ask you a question. So which one of these areas can you work on? And you might say, hey, Raleigh, we're doing well. We're doing well in all 5 areas. Or you might say, I didn't understand any of this. And that's okay. Really what this is kind of an outline, kind of a roadmap for you and your leadership team, your treasurer, your bookkeepers, your finance committee, for you to work on over the next 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months. And so if you took one of the areas and just kind of worked on it for 2 months, you get it done in 10 to 12 months, a year. So there's your little journey, your roadmap for the next year. If you want to take 3 months in each area, then that's like a 1.5 year roadmap. And that's okay. As long as you're moving forward, as long as you're working on something, that's all I ask. So just think about one of these areas. Don't get overwhelmed. I might overwhelm you, but don't worry about it. Just pick one, work on it, and then move on to the next one. Okay. So here are the 5 topics. And as you can see, it can have a lot of subpoints. So we're going to talk about payroll. Ministerial payroll is confusing. It's different than non-ministerial payroll. So we'll talk about that. 2, document your expectations. What is it that you want out of your financial systems or your people, your processes? You need to document those. 3, you measure what you expect. If you have some expectations, are you achieving those? Are you meeting those? Are you missing the mark? So we need to measure what our expectations are. The 4th one is protecting our people and our property. We need to be good resources, good stewards of the resources that God has given us. That includes our people, our property, and our finances. And that leads us into number 5. We need to safeguard our finances because, abuse can happen. And so when we get to that area, I'll talk to you about that, how abuse can happen in our churches. Okay, number 1, mastering ministerial payroll. There's a lot to ministerial payroll. And the first one is just salary versus hourly. We need to pay attention to the rules and regulations in your state and federal about whether our employees are hourly or salary. We call them exempt or non-exempt, and that just means a term of can they qualify for overtime if they work more than 40 hours? Or are they exempt from overtime, the Fair Labor Standards Act? We like to call everyone salaried because it's easy. It's just one number and we set it and forget it kind of thing, but we can't. There's a lot of rules before you can call all of your staff salary. And so most of the time, half of our staff in the church are going to be hourly because they just don't meet some of those rules. And so you need to pay attention to that and know what those rules are and make sure you classify your employees properly. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, now the Fair Labor Standards Act does carve out ministers. And so even though we say we need to comply with that law, ministers are exempt from that law. And so what I like to say is, because there's one component that says you have to pay them a certain wage before they can be salaried. And it is, Oh, Jeremy, you're gonna hate me because I just forgot the number. That's all right, I can find it. But you have to pay your staff more than this amount, before they can be salaried. But our ministers don't have to follow that. We can underpay our ministers and overwork our ministers, according to the Fair Labor Standards Act. And that's just unfortunate. Because I want everyone to have a fair wage for the amount of work that you're working, that you're being employed for. But ministers, you can pay them a salary, and it can be a very low salary, and the law says that's okay. Now, your non-minister employees, you can't pay them a low salary and work them extra hours without following the law. So our hourly, our non-minister, we have to be careful when it comes to our non-ministerial employees. Similarly, we need to classify them as employees or non-employees, the W-2 or the 1099 type of arrangement. Again, it's easier to make everyone a 1099 contractor, have that kind of relationship, because you just pay them a paycheck and put it on a 1099 at the end of the year. You don't have to withhold taxes. You don't have to get the W-4. You don't have to pay them fringe benefits. But the laws are very clear that if you're controlling their work, if you're directing their work, their duties, their job duties, if you're having them come in and work at the church, then they're going to be an employee. Most of our pastors, our ministers are employees in the Assemblies of God. Our ministers are employees, and they should be having a W-2, generally speaking. Your regular workers who come in every day, they're generally going to be employees, and so you need to classify them that way and then pay them accordingly. So what that means to us is we get a W-4, we withhold taxes, we submit them to the IRS on their behalf, and we fill out quarterly 941s. That's on the list as well. So all churches, once you have an employee, has to start filing the quarterly 941s. Even if your only employee is a minister. Now this is kind of confusing, but to be conservative and to be safe, even if your only employee was a minister, I want you to start filing the 941. So with ministers, we know that there's a lot of different ways they have a different way of handling their income and taxes. So for ministers, we don't have to withhold federal income tax or Social Security and Medicare. And in fact, we can't withhold Social Security and Medicare from our ministers' wages. We can withhold federal income tax if they voluntarily ask the church to withhold those taxes. And so if they are voluntarily asking you to, as the employer, to withhold taxes, then they can fill out a W-4. But that can trip up a few payroll. It can even trip up those vendors that you hire to do payroll, because not everyone understands ministerial payroll. But technically, we don't withhold their taxes unless they voluntarily ask us to withhold taxes. And then ministers, of course, get a housing allowance. Now, a housing allowance, when I talk to boards, this is often confusing to them, because I think it might be extra income, extra salary, over and above what you're paying them. And that's not true. We all know as pastors, we know the housing allowance is just a subset of our total compensation, and it just means that portion of our income that we don't have to pay federal income tax on. So that can be confusing, but it's important to know that you designate your housing allowance at the beginning of the year before you get paid. You can update it every year. You can update your housing allowance during the year if your situation changes, but it's important to get it approved by the board. And then at tax time, as you guys know, it's today, right? It's tomorrow, tax time. It's limited to the lower of your designated housing, your actual housing expenses that you guys can support with receipts, or the fair rental value of your house, fully furnished with utilities. And that third one is often the confusing one. You guys know what your designated housing is, you know what your receipts are, but how do you figure out your fair rental value of your house fully furnished with utilities? Well, the best way that I can encourage you to do it is even annually, just go get a realtor to give you an estimate, to give you a market estimate for that. Ask them, what would the rental value of my house be? You should do it at least, you can do it annually to be really safe, but I would recommend you to do it at least every couple of years. Just as markets change, that number could change. Especially if your housing expenses go up, because remember, it's the lowest of all three of those that you get to count on your taxes. All right, so proper handling of ministerial income. And the last one is what do we call income? I've seen there's a lot of things that we pay for personally for our ministers or our employees that really can be taxable income. We know that gift cards are taxable. We can't get around that. But Christmas gifts, bonuses, Pastor Appreciation Month, anything that you receive into the church offering and you pay out through the church funds is normally going to be taxable income for your staff. Reimbursement of business expenses that are properly supported, substantiated, those won't be taxable, but other gifts, love gifts, honorariums, bonuses, pastor appreciates, those will be taxable. So make sure you handle those appropriately. Okay, two more areas in this is a best practice is to put your pay packages in writing. Now there's more to our pay packages than just salary and housing, but we want to document those, right? But what about your vacation pay or your sick pay? What about any fringe benefits like health insurance or a retirement contribution? I would encourage you to think about those as church leaders to take care of your staff more than just pay and housing allowance. Think about health insurance, life insurance, retirement contributions. What other ways can we demonstrate to our staff that they're valuable? And adding some fringe benefits to the pay package is important. Having writing it down though helps, so that our minds don't forget. It helps our staff to know that this is how much I really care about you when they can look at that full package written down. And here's why I bring this up. I was part of a church where we hired a pastor, and the governing board said that they would provide health insurance to the pastor, but they didn't describe what that meant. So in that very first month, that pastor went out and signed up for medical insurance, dental insurance, and vision insurance. So when he submitted his monthly insurance premiums to the church board for reimbursement, they looked at it and went, oh, that's not what we meant. And so they denied it. So they didn't, so you can see the tension that immediately happened in the first month. There was a misunderstanding. But because they didn't document that expectation, there was this confusion. So if we write down our compensation package, it can go a long way. And then number 3, since payroll is confusing, maybe you need to outsource your payroll. And that's okay. A lot of payroll providers out there, from ADP to Paychex to Ministry Works. So a lot of folks, just my encouragement to you is that if you do outsource your payroll to a bookkeeper or a vendor, make sure that they understand ministerial payroll. Ask them if they support any other churches or nonprofits. And if they don't, if you're their first guinea pig, maybe you should move on to someone else because it can be confusing. All right, let's move on to number 2. My number 2 big boulder or big tip for you is to document your expectations. And what I mean here is we're going to talk about policies and procedures. Put your expectations in writing. And here's why we put it in writing. It helps us all understand what's expected. It puts us all on the same page. It can help with continuity during transitions. But it also just lets everyone know what's expected, and so it can minimize errors, minimize mistakes, and even reduce abuse if it's all written down. So in a second, I'm going to tell you what my favorite policies and procedures are. But before we move on, job descriptions is another way of documenting your expectations. A job description should have at least 4 elements. It includes the job title, your primary function, the supervisor, and then of course the list of the job duties. And so I find in the church world though we don't use a lot of job descriptions, but in the secular world there's job descriptions all day long, every job. Every time you post a job out on Indeed or Glassdoor, you attach a job description because it lets the employee know what their expectations are. So I'd like to bring that into the church world as well. And so maybe start with a job description for your staff. And then pastors, if you're in the room, ask the board, what's the job description for the senior pastor? Or maybe you can help create that one for the next pastor who comes on board. But that's about as much as I can say there in our time today. But I want to move on to the policies and procedures. If you ask me what my list of top 10, here they are, in no particular order. But a conflict of interest policy. We need to, as leaders of the church, we need to identify any conflicts that we have and make sure that it's out there. And then if like for example, if my son has a business, a lawn mowing business, and the church wants to hire them, that's okay, that's not wrong. But if I'm on the board, or if I'm the pastor, or if I'm a staff member and I'm voting, I wouldn't vote for that decision. I would abstain because I would have a conflict because that's a personal relationship with that vendor. But sometimes we don't know what these conflicts are, so we need to bring them up and document them on an annual basis. That's what a conflict of interest policy would do. A whistleblower policy means, and again, this is from the secular world where it's really important, or they're really focusing on it. But if there was someone who is identifying wrongdoing, the law says that we cannot fire them for being a whistleblower. And this applies to nonprofits as well. So all companies, it's federal law under Sarbanes-Oxley, that we can't retaliate against whistleblowers while they've brought an accusation against the employer and you are investigating it. Even if the accusation is false, the law says that. So even if the accusation is false, as long as that whistleblower thinks that it's true, we have to protect the whistleblower. We can't take action until it has been fully investigated. Similarly, document retention is a similar law under the Sarbanes-Oxley. If there is if the church realizes they're being investigated for some crime, you can't destroy records. That's what the law says. So we have a document retention plan that says we're going to keep our records for 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, and then we can destroy them. But if you're being investigated, you have to stop your destruction plan. So you have to keep all appropriate records. You can understand how that might be important. But we need to have these documented because we won't know that that's the rule. The rest of your staff won't know that. Intellectual property, who owns the pastor's sermons? Who owns the songs that the worship team creates? Will the church retain ownership? By law, by court cases, generally the employer retains ownership to anything that your employees create during working hours. But is that what you want? Maybe you want to allow the pastor to keep the sermon, to retain ownership. Maybe you want the worship leader to retain ownership of any songs they create while they're working on your church. So that's something to think about. Social media, who can post on behalf of the church? That's one side of the social media policy. The other side of the social media policy is how will we interact in social media? Will you allow your staff to interact with students one-on-one, or should it only be in a group chat, or in a group that has more than 2 people, right? So you need to put that in writing, and that's kind of what we're recommending now, is that there's not a lot of single, one-way or two-way communication between staff and especially students, but it will always be in a group type setting, a group chat. So you need to put that, you need to document those expectations if that's what you want. An expense reimbursement and an accountable reimbursement plan is what we call that. Reimbursements are not taxable as long as they're properly supported. Your expense reimbursement policy, we'll talk about that. Benevolence, we can give benevolence all day long, but we need to document how we do it. It needs to be well-defined. It needs to be kind of independent, and it needs to demonstrate that that person has a need. Your policy and your application can help prove that. Gift acceptance policy is one where it describes what will we accept as a donation. Of course, we're willing to take cash, and you know, we've had some jewelry or some artwork, but are we going to accept crypto? Your gift acceptance policy is something you prepare ahead of time that says, I'm ready for that. And so if you're going to accept crypto, you need to have some processes in place. Are you going to create that digital wallet yourself and accept Bitcoin? Or are you going to let a third party like InGiven manage all that for you and then just sell it and then give you the proceeds? Will you take cars? Will you take cars that are older than 10 years old? There's some churches that say we will accept cars, but not if they're older than 10 years old, because we want to, fix them up a little bit and then give them out in our benevolence program. But older cars might have with that. So a gift acceptance policy will let everyone know what you're ready and willing to receive as a donation. Your designated funds policy. This is kind of important in that we often are worried about what if we receive funds for the building campaign and we no longer want to, and we cancel the building program. What do we do with those designated funds? Well, a written policy that's been fully adopted by the board would say that if we are going to cancel a program or close a program, or we've completed the program, we will use those funds, we will roll them into a similar program. If you have that as a written policy, then you can do that. But if you don't have a written policy, if you don't communicate that from the pulpit, then you're stuck either with holding on to those funds forever, or maybe returning them to the donors. So a written designated funds policy can help you move forward if something like that happens. And then of course the compensation package, that goes along with my encouragement to document your compensation, and your policy will help you do that as well. All right, try and move along real quickly. Measure what you expect. Measure what you expect. And this is where I'm going to talk about our monthly financial reports. Where a financial report really is measuring your expectations. What was your income and what was your expenses for the period? So we know the balance sheet, that's your assets and liabilities. That just shows your health, your current position at one point in time, your balance sheet. Your income statement, though, is a picture of your income and your expenses just for a period of time, whether it's 1 month or for the whole year. But when you use those together, the balance sheet and the income statement, and it can really tell you, give you a good picture of the church's financial health. And so many churches do not use full financial reports. I can tell you about walking into a church, an organization where new leadership came into the church and they had all this money in the bank. But the financial reports did not tell them that it was actually designated for missions. They weren't clear. The financial reports weren't clear. So they spent a lot of the money upgrading the facility. And so they had a really nice, beautiful church facility when they were done, but they had spent all the missions money inappropriately. So once they found out that it was designated money, you know what happened. They spent the next year cutting back all kinds of expenses, not doing any kind of ministry because they had to repay the missions fund. So it's really important to have financial reports that are clear and complete and accurate. Another way to measure your expectations is the budget. You didn't think I was going to talk this session on finances without talking about budgets, did you? So a budget is a wonderful tool. I love them. But it's not meant to constrain you. It's just meant to say this is what our expectation is for the year, for income and expenses. And it allows the rest of the team to know that you can do this in your ministry. We've approved the budget, and it includes, projects 1, 2, and 3. But the budget is a quick way, but when you look at your income, if you're not meeting the budget, if the income isn't meeting the expectation, you can quickly adjust and stop some expenses. And so your budget is the tool that helps you do that. And I think it can help you do that quicker than for the churches that do not use a budget. So, but it's important to create it, but then it's also important to monitor it. And so I love it when that income statement shows the income and the expenses, but it also has that budget column. And you're comparing the actual income and the actual expenses to the budgeted income and budgeted expenses for that same period. That's a wonderful tool to measure what you expect. Now, if you do all that, then let's go up to, version 2.0. And there's other metrics that you can start measuring that can help you measure what you expect. That's kind of like next level. And these are like the dashboards. And here are just some of the metrics. Did you know that you can measure, of course, demographics, females, males, age-related demographics, north side of the city, south side of the city, by zip code, how many children. Of course, we know that. And attendance, we know that. But there's metrics that at a quick glance, by just looking at this picture, you can tell the financial health of your church. You can tell the spiritual health of your church, of your members, and you can tell if they're connected. Let me talk about these real quick. So, of course, in demographics and attendance, you can take your attendance by week or month or year. I talked about other ways to measure your attendance. Your financial health is, of course, contributions over time. We probably do well at that. But do you ever do your per capita giving? Do you ever do the trend of how you're giving per person? Because you want that to increase over time. They've learned that the act of worship through their giving. And not everyone gives right away, right? So that's going to be low when you try to divide your total giving by the total members or attendance. But over time, as you taught this discipline, that metric will go up and it'll be able to tell you that you're doing a good job there. Or the cost to reach attendees, or the maintenance cost per attendee. The spiritual health side, this is pretty cool. You can track your attendance to conversion ratio, and you can just kind of measure how well you are in health and maturity, spiritual health and maturity. And then when they're converted, you can track conversion to water baptism. That's the next step after salvation, right? And maybe you're going to track conversion to spirit baptism. But the one thing about all these metrics is you have to figure out a way to gather the data. So they're wonderful metrics, but you actually have to create a process to gather the data and then start tracking them over time so that they can be useful to you. And then connectedness and community. You can actually use numbers to tell you how well your membership are connected or how much they're engaged in the community of the church. Like how many of your attenders actually volunteer. That's a ratio. Or how many of your attenders are in small groups, or how many have gone through your any kind of special training that you have, a new believers class, things like that. So use metrics to it's kind of like the next level of measuring the financial and spiritual health of your church. Before I leave financial reports, Make sure you have your restricted fund balances are somewhere on your financial reports. That's why that one church got in trouble, because they didn't know their missions fund balance. They thought it was all operating fund. Include your operational and capital reserves. I want you to strive for 3 to 6 months of operating reserves in the church, just like we do in our personal life. Because again, COVID might hit again, or another pandemic. And if we have to shut the church doors, if the government makes us shut the church doors again, we need a little bit of reserves to help pay our people, help keep the lights on. And then lastly, I want someone, even if you outsource your bookkeeping to a vendor, I want someone on the finance committee or the leadership team to take a look at the detailed transaction list, at the bank statements, and the reconciliations. Someone needs just to pay attention to this, because this is where abuse can happen if no one's looking over their shoulder. And so a second person needs to kind of take a look at these detailed reports, just to make sure that everything is proper. If you want to know how your church compared to other churches, here is one metric that you could look at. Our salaries and wages are usually about 47 to 50% of our church expenses. Buildings, utilities, maintenance is about 22%. Ministries and sport is about 12%. Missions is about 9%. And then admin is about 4%, and other is about 4%. Now, this isn't just AG churches. This is a study that Christianity Today did a few years back. But it's just a way to benchmark your church activity against all other churches. And it's not right or wrong, and it will change based on different circumstances. But this is kind of the first level metric that you could use in your church. All right, I'm moving along. Number 4 is to protect your people and property, and this is using background checks and having adequate insurance. So we know we need to do background checks on our staff who might handle money or anyone who works with children. But I'm now getting to the point where I want to get background checks on all employees. And maybe all volunteers, because I know it's expensive, but you just never know which volunteer may interact with students, even though that's not their assigned job duty. But even the person at the door or a person in the parking lot is going to interact with children, and so you just might want to do background checks on everyone. And then vendors. There's one story where a bookkeeper, a vendor, a third-party bookkeeping service that an AG church hired, they actually stole money from the church. We might even have to start doing background checks on our vendors, because if we had done a background check on this vendor, we would have seen that they'd already been convicted of embezzlement. And then we probably would have never hired them if we would have known that they've already been convicted. And then while they were working for the church, there was 7 years while they worked for the church, they got convicted of stealing from a different organization. So if you do your background screening and then you repeat it every 3 or 4 years, you would have found out that they got convicted again. So it's something for us to think about. And then just make sure we have adequate insurance to cover our property and liability. Talk with your insurance agent annually and just make sure that they know if you've done any remodeling or new building or new equipment purchases, that they're aware of that. And make sure that your insurance is up to all of those assets. You don't want to be underinsured if something happens to your church. And I have a tip right there. We need to keep our expired insurance policies forever. It's interesting to me that the insurance companies aren't the ones to prove that we were covered. We have to prove that we were covered by that insurance agency if we ever have a claim from many, many years ago. And many churches, many states are dropping the statute of limitations or extending them for 20 or 30 years. And so how many of us still have our expired insurance policies from 20 years ago? You might not, but I want you to just remember from now on that you need to keep all of your expired insurance policies, because it's upon you, it'll be incumbent on you to prove who the insurance company was. if you ever get sued. Real quick, the last one is protecting our finances, of course. We need to have good financial controls in place to make sure that we're protecting the resources that God gives us. Studies show that every organization, even our churches, can lose up to 5% of our revenue to fraud every year. And here's just a little chart from our ACMR. You guys know that ACMR. Thank you so much for filling it out and sending it up to the national office. But here's just the different annual income for all the church sizes in the AG. If you're a church of 100 to 199, then your average income is around $340,000 to $1,000. And if you lost 5% to fraud, as this study claims, that's $17,000. That's important to you. That's a huge number for you, a church of 100. And so we need to put some controls in place to make sure that we're not losing 5% of our revenue to fraud. Here's another way of thinking of what 5% looks like. There's 52 weeks in a year, 52 offerings. Well, 5% is almost 3 weeks of offering. So what if you just had 3 weeks of offering and threw it away? No, that's terrible. That's kind of what that's the fraud impact on our churches. Fraud happens because of opportunity. There's 3 areas on why a fraudster steals from a church. They've rationalized in their heart that they need the money. They have some kind of financial pressure that they need the money. And then they have opportunity. They're left alone with the money bags. They're counting the offering by themselves. They can write the checks and sign the checks, and no one's looking over their shoulder. That's how opportunity happens. I want to show you, if this video is playing, this is opportunity in action. This is a person that's stealing money right from the church. Now, unfortunately, the church doesn't have good controls. The safe is that little drawer, and that manila envelope, that's where the offering is. And so he was able just to come in the office and take money out of the offering envelope and put it in his pockets. So that was opportunity, right? Unfortunately, this was the pastor of the church. So, what do we do to protect ourselves and protect our resources? One of the key things that we talk about is segregating duties. So your financial duties need to be split between 2 unrelated persons. So 2 people count the offering. One person writes the check, another person signs the checks. One person has the credit card and spends, and another person looks at the credit card statement and approves everything. And then one person's writing the checks or entering the data in the bookkeeping software, and another person reconciles the bank accounts. So this is what that looks like, just kind of whether we're counting offerings or whether we're signing the checks or we're providing reimbursements. It's just having 2 sets of eyes on every transaction. And I don't mean that you need to hire 2 people. I just mean that you have your bookkeeper who does most of the work, but have a second person, whether it's a board member or another person on staff or the pastor, or maybe a finance committee, a volunteer committee that you make out of some business people in the church, where once a month or once every 2 months, they're looking at all the transactions and they're seeing that there's proper receipts. They can sign off on the bank reconciliation. Maybe there's a second person signing the check. So just think about it. There's ways that we can do it without adding a lot of extra cost. All right, so that was quick. And I might have overwhelmed you a lot, but just as you sit there, you think about, is there one area that maybe I need to work on in my church? And maybe there's 2 areas, but just make this a goal of yours over the next couple months to take that one area, work with your leadership team, and just see what can we do to strengthen, whether it's payroll or whether it's financial reports or whether it's some metrics to measure how we're expecting our expectations, or whether we need to do some background screening, or whether we just need to add some financial controls to safeguard our resources. I just encourage you to take a little time this next year and work on 1 or 2 or 3 of these. Okay. And if you're concerned about your financial controls, I have written a book called Integrity at Stake. It's sold at myhealthychurch.com. It gives you a lot of financial controls for you to put in place at your church. And then, of course, visit empoweringstewardship.com for free resources related to finance and accounting. All right, so with that, I will turn it over to Jeremy and see if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Robin. That was wonderful. Yes, we have a few questions. I did want to segue your comment about the exempt workers. I had time to look that up. It's $684 per week, or just shy of $36,000 annually.
35,000 something, right?
Yes.
That's right. Thank you very much.
So the first question we have is, so do full-time non-ministers get a 1099 or W-2? And I'll segue, this is a common question I get. Ministers in general, I'm the only minister at the church. Am I a 1099 or a W-2?
I think you asked, they're the only employee as a minister at the church?
So the first question was, a full-time non-minister get a 1099 or W-2?
So it really depends on how much control the church has over that non-minister employee. If they're coming into the office every day and they're answering the phones, if they're cleaning, if they're janitor, cleaning the church using our supplies, that's more of an employee. If you say, I need you to run our social media campaign, you can do it anywhere, you can do it on any hours. I just need 5 posts a week, and I don't care what it looks like. That might be more of a contractor. So on our website, the IRS has some good tests, like 7-question test or an 11-question test, and we have those on our website, where you can just kind of answer yes or no to these questions on how much you control, how much are they using your equipment or their own personal equipment, and it helps you answer the question. So take a look on our website for those things. And that second one was about a minister, maybe?
Yes, one of the common questions I receive is if they are the sole employee or person that's employed by the church, and I think there's a common misconception about, well, I'm a self-employed, but in reality, they're actually a W-2 employee, so that's a common thing that I have to talk them through. So if you could just clarify that for them as well.
Yep, I agree. In the AG community, it's the church as an organization that calls the pastor to be an employee of the church, to fill the pulpit. So the organization is hiring the pastor, and so we expect you to be there on Sundays and Wednesdays. We expect you to have some office hours. We expect you to, be available for members' visits, do some hospital visits. So there's a lot of expectation, and you're using our equipment, you're using our office space. So most of the time, that looks like that's an employee. You're self-employed when it comes to Social Security and Medicare, but that's just a tax issue, not kind of a labor issue. So now in other denominations, a national organization sends the pastors, and they tell those pastors which churches to go to. That's a different situation. Those might be, they may not be employees of that particular church. So don't get confused. You might have friends in other denominations that are not W-2, but in the AG world, we kind of fit the mold for a W-2.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on a moral clause agreement, and do you have a sample of these key policies?
Can you repeat that?
What are your thoughts on a moral clause agreement?
A moral clause agreement. I think I'm going to rephrase that as like a code of conduct. Upon hiring, you have to follow this code of conduct or this moral clause, and if you breach it, then there's cause for termination. I think that's what the question is asking, and it's very common, and I would expect us to, in the church world, that we probably all want that, because there is a code of conduct that we We just don't allow, that other employees can do in the secular world, whether it's on office hours or off office hours, or, you know, that we still won't allow our staff to do. So we have a code of conduct here at the national office. How we handle that is during employment hiring, you can have a code of conduct and they can sign it. You might incorporate that code of conduct in the employee handbook. Now, not all our churches have a handbook, but it's a list of your expectations, policies and procedures, and the code of conduct is one of those, and then we sign off upon hiring that we read it and we agree to abide by it. And so, whether it's a single sheet or it's part of your employee handbook, many churches use this code of conduct or a moral clause. You kind of need to have it signed off, though, by the employee to say that they've read it and they're willing to abide by it.
Thank you. So Raleigh, I think that's it for questions. I've got one more comment, since we're already kind of talking the finance admin world here. In Oregon specifically, as of January 1, there was an Oregon Paid Family Leave Act that came in. It is not a tax. It smells like a tax. It looks like a tax. It's not a tax. Every employee, no matter if you're a minister or what, has to pay it. Any employers that have 25 or less employees, the employee out of their payroll will pay 60% of the 1% that is required to be sent to the state of Oregon. So I just want to make sure that as of that, you guys have hopefully had your payroll specialist take care of that. And again, I would just segue, that's probably the one Oregon specific comment I wanted to add on to this. So again, if we could give Raleigh a hand for his time.
Thank you all. It was my pleasure. If there's anything else I can do for you, Jeremy, or any of you pastors in the room, just let me know. And thanks a lot for letting me join you today.
Thank you so much, sir. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay. With that, we are going to move into our next presenter. Doug Farrington, as most of you will probably know, comes from us from Blue River. Remember your church's name, Doug? Living Water, yes. And so he has a very unique presentation that I was honored to be able to watch and listen to once before. And he just has a coaching ministry around the volunteer world, and I just thought it was such an important role for all of you guys to be able to hear this and be able to listen in on what Doug has to share with you. So with that, Doug, take it away from us.
I feel like a kid in a candy store right now. This is just one of my favorite topics, and I'm on a lot of things, but tall's not one of them. So is it okay for me to be down here? Because we're going to do some audience participation, and I'm going to get you involved. So if you can't see, feel free to move forward. Do I get to have the clicker, or is it on probation? Awesome, thank you. Awesome, thank you. So equipping champions is my passion. I use this term equipping specifically. You're going to learn today about why that is. It's a term that we're all familiar with. Why me today? First of all, I want to pray, because I want to declare some things over you that I believe are going to happen. So let's pray. Jesus, thank you for your words and your promises over us. You said that the harvest is plentiful, but workers are few. So pray that the Lord of the harvest would call forth laborers. You said don't wait. It's ripe and ready now. And so I just declare a revolution of volunteers over our churches this year. Lord, that as we pray and as we work, we'll experience an incredible multiplication, a revolution of volunteers. In Jesus' name, Lord, for our good, but for your glory. Can everybody believe for that with me? I'm going to make you a promise, and this is a bold promise, but if you will do the right things in the right way, in the right order, you will multiply your volunteers. I'm going to make you another promise that in a matter of 3 months, you can double your number of volunteers, your volunteer workforce. If you have 5 volunteers, you'll have 10. If you have 50 volunteers, you'll have 100 volunteers. I know this because it works. I know that's a bold statement, but it's a promise because I've done it. When I was at Horizon Community Church, and can you just give me the grace to brag on the Lord for a moment? Because I'm just a beggar that's found bread. And if I can't convince you that I have something that'll work for you, then you're not going to join me in what I'm going to be offering coming up, which is about a 10 to 12 week, step-by-step, blow-by-blow process where I'll walk with you for a number of weeks to do the right things the right way in the right order so that you can multiply your volunteers. If I can't convince you of that in the next 34 hours, then you're not going to believe me. All right? So when I was at Horizon, and these are just some things that have been said, I inherited small groups in May. And so going into the summer, so we're going to launch hopefully more small groups in the fall, right? Because that's just a great time to launch small groups. I inherited 15 small groups with 30 leaders, because most small groups have a leader couple, right? With no Sunday morning announcements, no clipboards, no web signups, doing the work of contact work, doing the work of networking. I'm not going to candy coat this. It's work. That's why it's called contact work, all right? That's why it's called networking, because it's just work. But what if we were to do, and if I could show you work that works, so that you're not continuing to do hard work that doesn't work, okay? So going through the summer, sitting at kitchen tables, time on the phone. How many of you know summer's like not a great time to recruit, right? In September, at our fall life group kickoff, we went from 15 groups to 32 groups. We went from 30 volunteers to 90 volunteers in the room for our fall kickoff, for that fall training. Nobody been trained yet. It's just the promises that I was making of the training that was going to happen. And so at that fall kickoff, Young Life, or not Young Life, I've got Young Life in my head right now. At that life group leader training kickoff, 3 weeks before launching those new groups, there were 90 volunteers. I know this works. I'm a volunteer recruiting nerd, okay? And I'm just going to tell you, it's been 35 years of finding out what doesn't work and failing at it and just determining what is this? Just asking, what is the right way to do this where we get more yeses out of potential prospects, right? So, what comes to your mind when you hear the words multiply your volunteers? So there's a microphone here somewhere. I just want to hear from you. What do you think you came here today when you saw that? Because there was no information about multiply your volunteers. So why are you here? Somebody raise your hand. Tell me, what do you hear when you hear multiply volunteers? How about you? What do you think about when you hear the term multiply your volunteers? Yeah.
I was thinking, I thought it was about small groups, so.
Okay, it is. It is. Okay? Somebody else, what do you think about when you hear multiply your volunteers? Yeah.
Basically, more people serving Sunday morning.
More people serving. More people serving. How many, just be honest. You thought it meant get more volunteers. Raise your hand. You thought that's what it meant. How can I get more volunteers? Yeah, let's be honest. There's nothing wrong with that. Does everybody agree that the church is a volunteer-dependent organization? Now, the principles that I'm sharing with you, I'm also taking into the marketplace because there are thousands of nonprofits around the world that are volunteer dependent. And yet everybody's experiencing the same pain points. So, what are some things that you hope to glean from this session? Somebody just raise your hands. I just hope to what?
How to make them more effective.
How to make them more effective. Okay, somebody else. Right there, yeah, back there.
Committed. If they say they're gonna do it, they do it.
Great. How many would like our volunteers to be more committed, to be more loyal, right? And to have more longevity out of our volunteers. Okay. Somebody else. One more. What's a hope, an expectation that you want to learn from that? How about my friend from Central Point? How you doing, man? I make all apologies for my brother in advance right now. Okay. And anything that he tells you is not true about me. Okay. Is it Taylor?
It's Taylor, yeah.
Yeah.
I like your word longevity. I think just people that stick and I guess volunteers that inspire other volunteers. Recruitment process.
Oh man, you just struck a nerve. For other, did you hear what he said? That volunteers would inspire other volunteers. You're onto something, and I don't know if you know it, but you're onto something. You just hit gold. So, why do we want to? These are just some questions. Why do we want to multiply our volunteers? Who is the most effective? Who is the most effective recruiter? So, first question, why do we want to multiply our volunteers? This is a different question than I asked before. I'm speaking to motive now. Why are we going to do a better job recruiting? Why do we want to get more volunteers? Yeah.
I think the more volunteers we get on board with us, the more committed, the more they own the vision, the ministry.
Yeah. Can I borrow a word that's in the room already? Synergy. Right? By the way, how many of you think that, just pause right now, how many of you think that the seed that God planted in Jeremy with this outsourcing model for us is a brilliant idea? Right? God is brilliant. That is a brilliant idea, and I just love what's happening with this. So, yes, multiply. Somebody else, why do we want to get, what would be a good, pure motive for wanting more volunteers, other than just having more people doing more stuff?
Many hands make light work.
Many hands make light work, yeah.
It helps, when we're working, it helps their relationship with drawing closer to God.
Oh man, you just got my tail wagging, okay? Did you hear what he said? Get people growing while they're serving, right? If you were to line up, let's be honest, can we just like strip away all of the spiritual things that we have in mind as it relates to equipping the saints for the work of the ministry? And we already know that evangelism needs to happen, discipleship needs to happen, and we've got tools for that. We know that that's the gospel and that's mission. And can we just be honest? If you were to line up 100 pastors in the room and just ask a question. Matter of fact, take them out one at a time and bring them back in. Do your own litmus test. What do you think if you could just unzip our brains, and we were to ask, what does it mean to equip the saints for the work of the ministry? What does that mean? How many of you would just be honest and say, aside from all that spiritual stuff about evangelism and advancing the kingdom of God, equip the saints for the work of the ministry? What does that mean? What's your definition? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? How many would just be honest? Raise your hand and say, it means get more people doing more stuff. You're not raising your hand, you're smiling and nodding, and I hear hums in the room. Raise your hand. Thank you. Honestly, it gets me more people getting more, doing more stuff. we need help. We're volunteer dependent. We need less burnout. We need less attrition. We live with the fear of attrition, and we live with the fallout of burnout. And yet, getting more people doing more stuff is not the motive for multiplying your volunteers. I just want to tweak you today. I want to challenge your thinking, and I want to shift your motive in your thinking for why you want to multiply more volunteers. Before we get to that, who's the best method? What is the best method of recruiting? So let me give you some ideas. What is the best method of recruiting? What are some things that we do? So we ask, we make announcements, we have flyers, we have things on our website, we lead pastor, right? What is the best method of recruiting? Somebody just take a stab at it. All right? There are no wrong answers because we're all doing the same thing, and most of us are doing the things that don't work. So what's a method?
Other volunteers recruiting more volunteers.
You just leaped ahead. I'm not gonna repeat what she said yet, because that was the answer. All right. So somebody got the first answer, right? So say that. Hopefully you didn't hear. Somebody else. What's it? Back in the back, yeah. What'd she say?
Take someone underneath your wing.
Take somebody underneath your wing. I like that too. What is the best method for getting the word out? Okay, for making the need known, for doing the ask and setting the hook. What do you think? What's the best method? Yeah? Relationships? Oh, man, you this is a room full of potential. You said relationships. What's it? Yeah?
Sharing stories.
Sharing stories.
Success stories.
Yeah?
Products of the ministry.
Oh man, you guys, this is exciting. Okay? Yeah.
I would say one avoidance would be begging.
Begging? Yeah. Don't beg. Yeah. Okay, so now let me just refer to some things that you didn't want to say, but you actually think and you do. Because we've all done it. All right? See, I want to expose that there's a difference between these, and I want to come back to you. What did you say?
Volunteers recruiting helpers.
Volunteers recruiting other volunteers. So, who is the most effective recruiter? Volunteers, right? And yet, we are not excellent at equipping volunteers to recruit other volunteers. You see, there's a difference between our philosophy, our principles, and what we actually do. And I'm going to suggest that what we actually do exposes more what we actually believe. And apparently, what we actually believe is that the lead pastor is the most effective recruiter for volunteers. Because if you're a lead pastor, you're the one that's doing the recruiting most of the time. And if you're a staff person or a volunteer in the church, the thing that you long for the most is minutes on Sunday morning. Be honest. Can we be honest? The driving thing that's in our gut is can I talk the lead pastor into giving me some more minutes on Sunday morning to talk about the need? See, I'm exposing our most dominant thought that is actually more true about what we believe, because while we believe that the most effective recruiter is the volunteer doing the work, which, by the way, is the answer. That's the absolute answer. I'm going to show you how to do it. That's the truth. Okay? But it's not what we do. Because we don't spend valuable minutes teaching the person doing the work to recruit more help to do the work. What we want, pastors, raise your hand if you're a lead pastor in the room. Raise your hand. Keep it up. Okay? Take your hand down if you don't ever feel any pressure from any ministry in the church to give you minutes on Sunday morning to recruit volunteers. You don't feel any pressure. Okay? Let me restate that. You don't ever feel any pressure from any ministries in the church to give them minutes on Sunday morning to make the need known. You feel that pressure, right? Yeah, because everybody wants time on Sunday morning to make announcements, to share the need. And everybody wants the lead pastor to wave the banner and to make the need known and get those volunteers coming our way, right? But I'm here to tell you that the least effective ways of recruiting volunteers are all the things that we do all the time. The least effective way is the lead pastor on Sunday morning. The least effective way is passing the clipboard. Oh, we don't pass the clipboard anymore. That's small church stuff. We put a sign up on our website. That's just an electronic clipboard. You want people to go there and volunteer, right? Sign-ups, announcements, flyers, those are all the least effective ways of recruiting volunteers. The most effective way is the person doing the work. Now, if you're a smaller church pastor, you need volunteers for areas that there are no volunteers. Those are ministries that aren't being resourced right now with help, right? You are going to be the recruiter, and you have to be, because there isn't somebody already doing that work. Okay? So I'm going to give you an assignment, because I know we've got churches of all sizes represented. So your first assignment, if you are a smaller church pastor and you more than once a day find yourself in your head saying this thing, why do I have to do this? Why am I doing this? I wish I had help. I'm going to challenge you. I know this is bold, but I've been there. I've done this in every size of church and in every area of ministry. Pull out your phone. Your most effective recruiting tool is your notes app. And here's what I want you to do. Just keep it handy. Every time you have the thought, while you're doing something, why do I have to do this? What do I got to do to get help? Well, the reason you don't help is because you're not asking, because you don't know how to ask. You don't have the tool to ask. So, write it down. In the moment. Because if you don't do it in the moment, you'll forget about it. You'll loop back around, you'll be doing it again, and you still haven't asked for help. And you're still frustrated. So I want you, the first assignment that I can give you today is write in your phone, thumb in, this is what I'm doing. And then make a couple of notes that are fresh in your mind. This is how I'm doing it. Okay, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. Okay? You can always build on that job description later on. So obviously today, we don't have the minutes for me to unpack all of the how-tos for recruiting volunteers. What I am going to be doing is I'm building a 10 to 12 week, blow-by-blow, step-by-step online webinar where I'm going to be unpacking all the details. I'm going to walk with anyone who needs to, whether it's a lead pastor of a smaller church or staff, or as many staff as necessary. If you're a larger church pastor, I don't want you. You're in the way. Let me explain that. You don't have the time. You don't have the bandwidth. And besides, we've already determined that you're not the most effective recruiter. We need the people that are actually in the trenches equipped to do the recruiting. Okay? So I want your nursery coordinator. If that's one person, and that you only have one person in the nursery, great. But if you have a staff of 50 people under a staff nursery recorder, I want to show them that nursery coordinator that has 50 volunteers underneath them. I want to show them how to turn that into 100 volunteers. That's what needs to happen. Right in where the boots are on the ground. Okay. So I'm going to be offering that. I thought I was going to do it this spring, but my spring's filling up, and so is yours, and spring's here, right? So we'll probably launch that in the fall. Summer's not going to be a good time to do it. I may offer a kind of a pre-summer, maybe 2 or 3 week stint where you can start to do some things like I did through the summer when we multiplied the volunteers for small groups. Okay, so if you'll do the right things the right way in the right order, you will multiply your volunteers. Everybody say, I will. Okay? Start by looking at your volunteers differently. Christ himself gave the prophets, evangelists, and pastors and teachers to equip. Everyone say equip. To equip his people for works of service. Here's where we're going to start thinking differently. This does not mean just get more people doing things. This word is a really interesting word. It's my favorite word. That's why I have it on my business card. It's just, this lit up for me about 20 years ago. I stumbled across a cassette tape. Does anybody remember cassette tapes? I stumbled across a cassette tape in an archive somewhere, and I don't even remember why or where, but it was Jack Hayford, Pastor Jack Hayford. And he did a teaching about equip. This is an interesting word. The word equip here is katartizo. How many of you knew that? How many have heard raise your hand if you've heard the word katartizo. You've ever done a study of katartizo, okay? That's this word right here. The word means mending. Mend what has been broken or rent, to repair, to complete, to fit out, to equip, to put in order, to arrange, adjust, to fit or frame for oneself or prepare. Mend what has been broken. I want you to think about why we're going to reshape, as I mentioned earlier, why we want to, what our motive is for recruiting volunteers. The word, I'm going to just go back for a second. The word equip means mend. It's where Jesus is approaching Peter and Andrew, and then goes from there and approaches James and John, the sons of Zebedee. And in both scenarios, he says what? And finding them, what were they doing when he found them? What were they doing? Mending their nets. He said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. In both of those scenarios, the word is katartizo, mending nets. Now in the day, where there were round nets, they weren't using fishing poles, there were three things that needed to happen that was really the process of mending nets. Mending nets didn't just mean tying the loose ends. It was a whole process. First, you didn't start with tying the loose ends. First, you removed the debris, right, from the nets. Then you tied up the broken ends. And then you folded them in just a particular way so that for deployment. Everyone say deployment. Isn't that what we want to do? Deploy more volunteers? So they could throw the net out over the water and it wouldn't just end up in a tangled pile, right? So they were full. This whole process of removing the debris, tying up the broken ends, and then preparing for deployment, that whole process was, and finding them, mending their nets. That's just kind of what they were doing, right? This is why we want more volunteers. What if we were to stop separating the process of recruiting and training volunteers from discipleship and spiritual formation? What if we saw a larger group of volunteers as a captive audience for spiritual formation? What if we saw our heart and our motive for having more volunteers is so that we could bind up the brokenhearted, set captives free, prepare them for the day of the Lord. Does that sound familiar? Mending nets is what it was, the mission of Jesus. It's what he prophesied. It was the first thing that he spoke his first time in the synagogue. He picked up the scroll and he read from Isaiah 61. And he declared who he was and what he'd come for, to bind up the brokenhearted and to set captives free. David referred to it in Psalm 147, verse 3. This is the mission of Jesus. Now here's the thing. We tend to have these environments where we do discipleship and we do evangelism and we do equipping for advancing the kingdom. And while we're doing all these environments in our church, our volunteers are working somewhere while other people are getting this equipping and this spiritual formation that's happening. We've got volunteers all over everywhere in different parts of the church that aren't present for that. Right? And so I'm going to apologize in advance, but I'm a bit of a redneck. I'm going to use a term that you probably wouldn't use from the pulpit, but it's just us right now, right? We have volunteers working, whether it's in a church of 20 and we have 5 volunteers, or it's a church of 2,000 and we have 600 volunteers. We have people all over our church that are working hard. They've been working for a long time, and spiritually they are as dry as a popcorn fart. Why? Because they're never in church. They're always working. They're always serving. So what if we developed a plan for multiplying our volunteers, and part of that plan included ongoing training for the work that they do? And while we have them present, because we have a catertizo mentality that shapes our meeting agenda. It shapes what we do with the minutes that we have them present for. I was just talking to somebody today, and it was a God drop. It was something going on back home. Actually, a volunteer in the community called me and asked me if I'd volunteer at the track meet this Thursday. And we got to talking about volunteers. And he made a comment that just had a fresh spin on it. He said, Doug, what is the best way to keep a well healthy and continuing to provide water? What is it?
The flow of water.
The flow of water. But what's the best way to keep that well healthy and providing water? Some of you are thinking, keep the pump running, right? No, that's a different metaphor. Let's set that aside. Let's let that metaphor solve something else, and let's get a new metaphor, okay? The best way to keep, somebody want to try, forget trying the pump. What's the best way to keep a well healthy and providing a constant flow of water? What is it?
Not overusing it.
Don't overuse it. Somebody else.
Remove the water, pull water out.
Pull water out. What? Very, very simple. How many of you have a well, or you've ever had a well at your place? The best way, I caused a problem with our well this summer because I left the water running, filling up the swimming pool, and then I came out and I couldn't figure out why the swimming pool was full of dirt. And how'd the dirt get in my pool? Where I was honest, it was a mystery. It was a mystery. Where'd the dirt come from? We had no sandstorm. And then I realized that I had overworked the well. I'd let it get too low, and I'm sucking sand off the bottom. This guy says to me today on the phone, the best way to keep a well providing fresh water is don't let it run dry. Are you seeing we're letting our volunteers run dry because we're not thinking about, we don't have to separate spiritual formation of our volunteers from discipleship. When we have meetings, when we do recruiting, when we do training, spiritual formation is a part. Let me give you a couple of spiritual formation questions that work great in volunteer training meetings. You get all your volunteers together, you start a meeting with this. 2 questions. Write them down. Somebody share with me something that the Lord is showing you about you. If I were to ask that question right now, it would change the environment of this room and would turn into spiritual formation. Just somebody share with me something. You don't have to do it right now. I'm just giving you an example. Somebody share with me something that the Lord is showing you about you right now. We're just in a group. There's 20 of us here. There's 5 of us. It just might be your worship team. This applies to every single area of how many of you are worship leaders? You come into your worship meeting, you pray, you start the band. You pray, you start rehearsal. And you assume that your worship team are abiding and bearing fruit. Because we just got time, we got to get a rehearsal. Well, what if we took 15 minutes, or we expanded our rehearsal 15 minutes longer and provided time for spiritual formation? You assign somebody that next time you come together, okay, we just finished rehearsal. Hey, John, next week I want you to start us off sharing with me something that the Lord's showing you about you. Second question. Hey, somebody share with me something that the Lord is showing you about him. Somebody just share with me, right? Something that the Lord is showing you about him. Those are two brilliant spiritual formation questions. They're very simple. I'm not talking about rewriting the book on discipleship here. I'm just talking about integrating into your training, your volunteer time. The other thing that I'm going to show you is we're afraid, let's be honest, we're afraid to schedule volunteer training moments. Like a once a quarter. When I was doing life groups at Horizon, we just did 4 training sessions a year. That's all. But yet I or myself would meet no less than once a month, sometimes once a week with the more core group, trying to create an experience in them that they would multiply to others. So what I'm going to do with you in this one-on-one coffee time, I'm doing very, very specifically, very intentionally, because what you experience in this meeting is what I want the people that are working under you to experience. That's just a coaching mentality. You don't have to be a certified coach or do any training to learn coaching tactics where you're asking powerful questions, doing very intentional listening, and it's about spiritual formation, right? When I hired our worship leader, I said, Annie, I want to tell you something right now. I want you to hold me to this. This is what I want your experience to be. I want your experience to be that I care more about you as a person than a product. So I make myself accountable to the people that I'm equipping, right? Because I want first and foremost for her, if there's debris in her life that either I can help with or I can refer to her to a woman or somebody, whatever is appropriate, whether I'm a guy or gal, I want to make sure that if there's debris in her life, I want to know about it. All right? I want to make sure if there's brokenness in them, that I want to know about it. Right? I want to make sure that they are healthy for deployment because the debris has been removed and the broken ends have been mended. And they're ready for deployment each week. Right? So I said, I want this to be your experience as we go forward year after year. And I'm going to ask you frequently. I just asked her this week. So Annie, has it been your experience that I care more about you as a person than a product? And the other promise, commitment that I made is I want you to feel like you are gleaning more from serving in this ministry than you're spending. You're gleaning more than you're spending. So, most of you are familiar with the why, right? So the why is that Simon Sinek made it famous, the Golden Circle. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Simon Sinek and you've ever heard him deliver the Golden Circle. If you haven't, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but he targets the why. And he uses this example of a vacuum salesman. The vacuum salesman comes up to the door. There's 2 scenarios. One comes up to the door, and he's got a vacuum. Knocks on the door opens, and he says, "Hey, can I tell you about my vacuum?" The person's immediately lost, right? No, I don't want to hear about your vacuum. But the other guy walks up to the door. The vacuum's not even out of the car yet. And he has a box that's about this big that knocks on the door, opens it up. He's got the vacuum salesman hat and shirt on, so it's obviously who he is. And he hands him, he goes like this, he says, "Look, I want to show you something. Give me 1 square foot of carpet in your living room, and I'll show you that that's what's in it. There's at least that much in every square foot." And it's just this little box, like ring box full of dirt and grime. And you're like, 1 square foot? Yep, if you let me show you, I'll get it out of your carpet. Well, what are you going to do it with? How are you going to do that? Just let me show you. right? The vacuum's already sold, it's not even on the van yet, because he started with the why, right? So this is why we want to take this principle, not with the what, not with the how. We're going to start with the why. First with us. Why do I want more volunteers? We just talked about the motive. The motive is we mend nets. How? Through training. We don't have to be afraid of scheduling training sessions, even if it's just a one-on-one with that one volunteer, or it's everybody in the room together, because we don't know what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to show you what to talk about in those meetings. And third, what? See, the what is multiply. That's the outcome. We don't start with the what. That's what got you here, the what. But we don't start with the what, we start with the why. Then we're going to take this principle and we're going to apply it to every area of every single individual area of ministry. Okay? Why? Because we care more about you as a person than as a product. We want you to glean more than you are required to give. Where you are more enriched than what you spend. Why? Because people serve gladly and loyally when their experience is enrichment and personal growth rather than just a labor of love with no end to it, with no end in sight. And here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to show you how to establish the why in your ask. That's your purpose, mission, and vision. How to train with a succession plan. And we're going to finish with the what. Opportunity to serve. So I'm going to give you an example here real quick. We're going to move into Q&A. Because we're done at 4, right? 4:55, okay? So let me give you an example. I need some help here. Could I use you, Bruce? Come up here, Bruce. So just think of an area of ministry that you are void of a volunteer. You just need help. What is that area?
Technology.
Okay, technology. So you're going to recruit me, okay? So now be gracious, okay? Because he's going to do the same thing that everyone does. But we're going to do it differently from now on. I'm going to show you what works, okay? So, you're going to recruit me. It's okay, you're going to do it how you do it. Right? You're going to do it how you do it, okay? We're not going to get out the gong, okay? You're going to do the same thing everybody does. So you're going to recruit me right now. What's the conversation in the hallway sound like? Okay?
Hey Doug, we're needing help. Can you come help us? Oh, there we go, thank you.
Yeah, Doug, you need help. Can you come help us? Yeah.
Hey Doug, we need some help with some technology things. I've seen that you're pretty good at that kind of stuff, and what you're not good at right now, we'll help you to get good at.
Okay, wrong. Okay, everybody stand up. Everybody stand up. We're going to do something together real quick. Just stand up real quick, okay? On your heels. Okay? Not on the balls of your feet. I just want you just slightly on your heels a little bit, okay? Are you on your heels? Okay? Keep more heels until you start falling back, okay? That's what our potential recruits are doing while we're doing that. They're on their heels and they're backing up. Why? Why are they on their heels? You can sit down now. Why are they on their heels? Don't go away, Bruce. Why are they on their heels? So while Bruce is standing here, let me give you an example. How many of you have teenagers, or you've been, you've raised teenagers? Okay. So don't go away, Bruce. I need one more. I need one more recruit. Let me ask you real quick. So it's been a long time since we talked. I don't remember your name, Monty. All right. You still in Estacada? No. No. Okay. Forget all that. Okay. All right. So okay. So do you have you had teenagers?
Yes.
Okay. So you're your teenage daughter.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah, you can share the mic. So you're your teenage daughter, and you're going to ask me if you can go to the movie. Okay?
Okay.
So how are you going to ask me that's going to make me want to say yes?
Dad, you know how much I love you.
It's okay, you can kiss me on the cheek.
Yeah. I need $20 to go to the movie. With my friends. Pretty please, pretty please.
No.
Dad.
No. Okay, so you sit down. First time my daughter came to, I'm going to give you the mic. Oh, we have two mics. So first time my daughter came to me to ask if she could go to the movie. Don't go away, Bruce. She came to me and asked, and how she asked, it just made me want to say no. So I actually found myself saying this to her. Okay, Audrey, I'm going to teach you how to teach me how to say yes. Because that is going to get a no every time. So here's what it's going to sound like. Dad, I would like to go to the movies with Jane. It's going to cost $12. I have the $12 from babysitting. The movie starts at 9 o'clock. We're going to be home before midnight. Jane's mom is going to give us a ride there and back. I am going to see the movie that I'm telling you I'm going to see. I am going to go with the people that I am saying I'm going with. None of that's going to change. Can I go? Yes. Now, what was the difference? Information, right? The reason volunteers get on their heels is because we walk up to them in the hallway at church, or we make an announcement, or we put some information up, and we don't give all of the information. Here's the information that needs to be included. So I'm going to teach you how to create a half sheet. You can put these half sheets in a board where they're available or in a display in the hallway, but not because that's going to do the job. What's going to do the job is the work of contact work and the one-on-one, okay? I was a terrible youth pastor for 14 years. I actually didn't like youth ministry. I didn't like being a teenager when I was a teenager, and when I was a teenager, I didn't like teenagers. So why is it that I did youth ministry for 14 years? Matter of fact, when Stan Russell came to Horizon, it was Grace Community Church at the time. I was already there. I'd been there about 5 years, and I gave him my resignation. And he said, "No, we're not going to do it that way, Doug." And I said, "Look, Stan, I don't even like youth ministry. I feel like it's a glove that keeps my hand warm, but it doesn't fit." And he says, "All I want you to do is keep doing what you're doing." Jeremy said it a little bit ago. Just build people that are going to build people. Okay, just keep doing that. I was terrible. I didn't even have a connection with teenagers. But I could walk around on Sunday morning with my Bible, and it's developed over the years. It started out with a big packet. We're not going to do that anymore. This works. All it is a half sheet. But I had my youth leaders training packet. It was impressive. It worked. I just have learned over the years that I didn't need all that information in volumes. I needed all the information on a half sheet, right? And so I would just walk up to somebody on a Sunday morning who was talking to a teenager. When an adult's talking to a teenager and there's laughter going on, that's a miracle, right? That's a youth leader, right? So come on, Jeremy. So I would walk up to them. So here's how it's going to work now. So Bruce. Hey Bruce, I heard you talking the other day, and I got the idea that you have an interest in like electronics, audiovisual, recording, anything like that. Would you take a look at this? I'd like for you to just read that, pray about that. I'm going to call you in a week and follow up and just get your thoughts on that. Okay? Thanks, Bruce. That works. I'm telling you, you will get 9 out of 10 yeses. I'm serious, because it's not on his heels. What was on that? It started with the why. Okay, and you can use that, Bruce, since it happens to be the area that you're recruiting for. Okay? It doesn't start with how he started. It doesn't start with, hey, would you be interested in working in the nursery? Would you be interested in working in audiovisual? It starts with the why. Everyone say because. That's going to be the first word to every one of these for every area of ministry in your church that you write. And I'm going to show you how to write them. Because, everyone say because. Because we are passionate about people hearing the gospel and seeing the message, our audiovisual ministry is mission critical. Some people learn by seeing, others hear by hearing. Most people learn best in both. And those are the obstacles, like a lot of people have with mobility. And that's why they have issues for finding out what it needs to be feasible. And they can't get to a traditional service. That's why we're dedicated to our audiovisual production outreach. How we're going to train you. How much time does the training take? How often is the training? What is the duration of your service? Remember my daughter asking me if she can go to the movies? What? Would you prayerfully consider learning how to work in the audiovisual department? You end with the what, and it works. Questions? Actually, we got to dive in 55.
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
failed on
Doug,
the
so much.
I failed on the Q&A, didn't I?
It's okay. Round of applause for Doug, please. So I hope this has been impactful. Hope you get something you can take a few nuggets home, bring it to your church leadership and all that kind of stuff, and be able to both Raleigh's presentation as well as Doug's. Synergy is having a few webinars. May 17th, we have Crisis Communication. We have the National AG Mark Forster coming, as well as Brittany Dunn, our very own Brittany Dunn, is leveling up your video on social media on July 19th. So I just want to say that those webinars, the exact same kind of thoughtfulness, impactfulness that was presented today, it's just a way to be able to get, so you don't have to come to Salem all the time to get these kind of webinars or these thought-provoking ideas moving along in your church. And so with that, I did one on your time so you can go grab a bite of eat. If you have any questions for Doug, he's here. And so if there's any parting comments or questions, Doug, that you have for the group?
Yeah, let me just leave you with this. I'm offering something, everybody here in the room, a free clarity call. So my cards are over there. There's a URL code. These are the things that we're going to talk about. How to beat burnout, eliminate the fear of attrition, develop effective equipping culture. I'm going to provide scripts and show you how to write a script for an effective ask. I'm going to show you how to develop an effective follow-up matrix and a simple universal training template that works for every single area of ministry. Okay? All you have to have is a template, and it'll be easy to write. Leave you with this. That QR code will get you to, if you don't have time for it, you can get it on the way out. It's on my laptop over here. That QR code will get you to a simple sign up for that free 1-hour clarity call, where we can talk about your specific needs. You can ask me all kinds of questions about whether or not my system is going to work for you, and if it is, you'll be able to sign up for that 10 to 12 week, week-by-week system that I'm going to be providing. You're wondering about the cost. There's no bait and switch here. I'm going to tell you it's going to be under $500 for an individual for 10 weeks. That's $50 a session. That's half of what I'm going to be providing the public. It'll go up to, for an individual church, up to $1,500 to $3,000, depending on the size of the church. Because if I'm working with 100 volunteers, I'm going to do that for the price that I work with one individual smaller church pastor. And then we're also going to group it into the size of churches so that I can kind of double down on what's relative to each size of church. So let's just start with a clarity call. You can drill me and ask me questions because you didn't get to today, and decide if this is something that will help you, okay?
Thank you. So again, OregonAG./synergy, you can get all this information. We'll have this video recorded as well so that you guys can access that in the next few weeks when we get caught up after Summit. So again, thank you guys so much. Please have a quick bite to eat. We'll be back here at 6 o'clock for Doug Clay and the credential ceremonies.
Everyone say yay, Synergy. I'm here too if you want to ask questions. I'm not going anywhere.